going to do a shoot. She was going to do...
Right?
I think you just got it. That is a skill. Like, are you one of those people who can like knock out the star and get the bike at the fair?
Well, so this is like a shotgun. And so essentially you put your ammo, which is salt, in there, and it spreads out. So you kind of just
it's like
sorta
a
have
spray.
To, spray.
Yeah.
But there is a sight here and there, and as long as you line those up, you pretty much get it.
That's really impressive.
Isn't that I'm telling you, this thing's
impressive.
amazing. I love this thing. So if you see another fly. So
Ready?
this
Let's do it.
is episode 2, and we finally figured out a name, Hot Set.
Hot set. I like
Because
it.
it's Arizona, and we're talking about film production. And we are at Pirate Grip and Electric. I'm Jarrod Wilson, and I am with, today,
Hello, Samara Byrne.
Samara Byrne. Now, does anybody ever say Samara?
I get that a little bit.
And is there one that's correct and not correct?
Well, it's Samara, but
Okay.
I answered both. And it's weird. I used to go by Sam pretty much everywhere until I moved here.
Oh.
So before I moved to Phoenix, everyone called me Sam, and now it's switched.
And where did you come from?
I'm from Michigan, and then I lived in Dallas in between for a few years, and now I'm here. So.
And why did you come here?
Well, there was a guy,
Of course.
and we moved for his job, and I married him at one point, and then I unmarried him, and here we are. So, but I decided to stay in Arizona. Like I love it here. It's home, and I thought about what I wanted to do, and we ended that. I don't have any family here and stuff, but I have like really good work roots and friends, and it was where I needed to stay.
And you're kind of an outdoorsy person.
Yeah.
So it's good for you here.
Do a lot of hiking, like to get outside, kayak. I kayak a lot. I go to Tempe Town Lake just because it's close, but there's tons of places. So I like to run. I'm not really much of a gym girl. I use the steps downtown to run, and the staircase next to the Diamondbacks. Have you ever run up that?
Oh, is this like a little secret, like a downtown secret?
It's really good.
You
By,
heard
like,
it here first.
The second or third time you get to the top, your legs are just on fire. It's awesome.
Okay, very
So,
cool.
Yeah, I like it here a lot.
And when you first came here, you weren't in production, and you got into production while you were here, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you got in as a production assistant. I think the first time I met you, you were a production assistant,
Yeah.
and then you worked your way up. How did that work?
Well, so my background is journalism, but I went to school a little bit later in life. And when I got out, I realized that I kind of focused on reporting, but you don't start as a reporter in Phoenix. It's just too big of a market. And I wasn't moving at the time. So I thought, how can I make this work? So I started freelancing, and I did shooting, writing, and editing for Channel 12 as a freelancer. And I did family photography. And then I wanted to get, kind of understand how sets work. And so I just offered to work for free or cheap, which, surprise, somebody took me up on.
Nice.
They didn't have a PA in the budget or whatever. And actually, Randy and Teresa Murray gave me a shot. And so I PA'd on a couple of jobs for them. And then Randy said, you know what, maybe don't take any more PA jobs. He's like, you need to like not get pigeonholed in that spot. And he's like, I think you can do a couple other things. So anyway, I ended up getting a coordinating job with them, and just kind of went from there.
Nice.
yeah.
So you took a leap of faith a little bit there and said no to jobs.
Yeah.
Being freelance, so many of us are afraid to say the N word.
Yeah.
No. I know myself, I'm such a yes man, and sometimes to a fault. So you're saying that if you want something in this industry, you kind of have to be a little picky, maybe. Sometimes.
Yeah. And it worked out okay because so I just wanted to have a lot of irons in the fire. And I had, for example, I was doing shooting, writing, and editing for United Way, but that was I was billing the least for them just because it's United Way. And, but they kept me really busy when I wasn't busy, which was great for my brain and gave me experience. But then as I started to get busier, that was kind of the one I pulled away from, as I was getting jobs that paid a little bit more. So just having options, of like the work I wanted to do, the work I really liked, maybe the stuff that paid a little bit better, that actually paid the rent and paid the bills and stuff. But I mean, it's a little scary to do that.
Sure.
But, and then when things got slow with production, there was family photography work. So it just it all balanced out.
Sure. Now, I mean, it also sounds like the whole concept of if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. So it sounds like you were pursuing more of your dream and your the things you like to do, and then the money came later.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like focus on the hard work, focus on the people, try to like build your reputation, do a good job, all those kinds of things, and everything else pans out. I really, it's not always that easy, obviously, and there's little dips and valleys in that, but like, oh yeah, I mean, you just have to go and have fun and try really hard and, you know, just kind of, I think it tends to fall in place, especially if you work with good people and, you kind of hitch your saddle a little bit to
Yeah.
people who really care about what they're doing and, follow up afterwards, do all those types of things and stay on people's radar.
Now, as soon as you got used to being freelance, it seems like then you took a job on payroll with the company you're with right now.
Yeah.
Who is?
It's Reister Advertising. That was not expected.
Yeah.
So in the journalism world, like going to an agency is kind of like selling your soul, right? Like we're trying to be the voice to the voiceless and tell the stories that need to be told and keep people accountable. And agencies are a little more, a lot more commercial, right?
Sure.
And it's a totally different beast. But what happened was Reister hired Randy Murray Productions for a job. Randy and Teresa hired me. And so shortly after that, they had lost one of their producers, moved out of state, and so they were looking for somebody. And so they called, and I really debated because I was just starting to feel really confident about what I was doing, and my pipeline was getting full, and I was like, okay, I can make this work, and it's going to be good. But then, I talked to a couple of people, and one of the things I was excited about was like getting bigger budgets and just learning different parts of the business, I guess, like all the front end stuff, the post producing stuff. So I decided, I'll give it a year.
Yeah.
And now it's been almost 7.5.
Wow, really? It's been that long?
Which is crazy.
Oh my gosh.
It's really crazy. Like time flies, and it's very cliche, but it's true. And I've learned a lot. It's been really good. So it was a little scary because I thought, well, if I undo what I've done as a freelancer and I'd step into this role, I have to start all over again. And I may eventually.
Sure.
You never know what's going to happen, but yeah,
Now,
it was good.
Do people approach Reister with a project? Does Reister approach other companies that maybe they see have potential? Or is it like, how does that work for people who don't know how this whole system works?
Yeah, I'm not super involved in the new business side. Like once they have clients and clients start doing stuff is kind of where I come in and make the pizza, a
Okay,
little
gotcha.
bit.
Reoccurring jobs.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so they do both. They get invited to pitch for jobs, like respond to RFPs. They reach out to people. Some of it's pre-existing relationships, like a new account person will come in and they had a relationship with someone, and there's different ways that it goes. I think as there's certain jobs too that go out for bid, like they're contracted. We have a contract for 5 years, and then it goes out to bid again, so everybody bids on it. And sometimes we re-win the business, and sometimes we don't. So it's a lot of different ways. And then once they have a client, then the work flows in. They figure out what their budget's going to be for the year and what they're going to spend it on, whether they're going to do like a website or branding spots or whatever it may be. And then it starts to kind of trickle down to me. So I always get a little slower right at the end of the year because they usually a lot of the fiscal year budgets end at the either in the fall or the end of the year, and then they figure out what they're going to spend their money on. And so I have a little window where it slows down, and then we start cranking. So yeah,
Nice.
it's fun.
Well, so whenever people come to you with a project, is it mostly is it the whole spectrum? Is it like going to either be on a website, a commercial, like on someone's phone? Like, is it just everything and anything, or does Reister only do certain kinds of projects?
Oh yeah, it's pretty scalable. Like certain clients have like full scale. Reister provides like full scale services, so PR, digital, media, creative, all that stuff. And then other ones only do certain things. So there's like a client that only comes in once a year and does radio with us, and that's all they do. Hopefully that'll change someday because
Sure.
it's a fun account to work on. And some that only do PR, and I don't really ever touch anything for them. And then other ones that do everything. And then we have some that come in for projects. They just come in, they say, this is a project you need to have done. We bid that, and then they go and do their own thing until they need us again. So it just kind of depends. But like with anything, it's scalable, right? Like sometimes you show up and you bring the truck and the team with you and all the
Right.
things, and sometimes they just need, a certain portion of it. So it's kind of the same, and that makes it's nice because depending on like the budget that they have, the level of production that they want, then we like try to. It's a little puzzle piece and try to figure out what to include. So it's pretty fun. Yeah.
And why? So now that you are producing with this agency, why do you like to do it here in Arizona? Like, do you feel like you would want to expand into another market someday, or are you just happy here? And why here?
I hear people talk about that. It's interesting. I moved around a fair bit before I got here. Michigan, Dallas, here. Actually, then I went to Ireland for a year, and then I came back here. So I was kind of ready to stay put a little bit. That part was fine with me. Like I liked moving, but I was good. And I think it's really important to feel at home in the sense of community. And this is it's a big city. It's what the fifth or sixth
Totally.
largest city in the
It's
country.
huge.
But our community production and advertising and that world is really small.
It is.
And it's nice.
It is.
I like that. I find a little comfort in being in, I guess, a little smaller pond. So that I really like. And like there's really good people here. I just feel like people are down to earth. It's real.
Yeah.
I like that I can wear flip-flops and jeans and I can wear a dress to work. I can do like a little bit of both. You can go into a really nice restaurant here and wear flip-flops and like a casual skirt and a tank top in the summer. I really like that. So I feel like the vibe of Phoenix really fits my personality. Like, it's casual, it's intimate. I feel like the people are down to earth and real. So all of that. And then from a production standpoint, I mean, I feel lucky to be able to get to do what I do here.
Yeah.
There's
Totally.
there's only so many crew jobs. There's only so many producing jobs. There's only so many editing jobs, all of that stuff. And I feel incredibly lucky. And, one of the nice things about having taken like a full-time position is, there's no guarantees that could change any day and all of that for sure. I'm not, I'm very aware of that, but it's nice. The business kind of flows into my inbox and it seems pretty, I'm always busy. So I love that. It would be really hard to stop, to turn that down, I guess. But I also, it's nice. Like we have a really good network of people. I want to work with everybody I get to work with, like both at the agency and on set. I only wish we had more shoots and more opportunities and more days that we could pull people in. So, I mean, I don't know, like LA or even like Atlanta. We just did a job there about a year ago. I learned a little bit about the production there, which was super interesting, but it's, I don't know. It's pretty big. There's a lot of people and it's easier to get lost, I think. So I like it a lot.
I know that sometimes I work on jobs here, and they bring in people from out of state. Like I do grip and electric, so they'll bring in the DP, or they'll bring in like the gaffer or the key grip.
Right.
Is that really needed? Do we need to do that? Is there are they bringing anything to the table that we don't already have here?
I actually would be interested to know what you think because you have different experiences on set with different people.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think when you see it?
So, working in Arizona, I know, and owning gear, I know what's available. So whenever I'm on a scout, I'm not thinking about how we will solve, because we're just problem solvers. We get a problem, how are we going to solve that?
Just.
Right? And so I'm not going to give out ideas utilizing equipment that we don't have here in town. And when you bring in people from out of town, especially from LA and New York, who have, that they're able to use all kinds of different gear that we don't have here, I feel like they're going to gravitate towards trying to use that gear. And then when they don't get it, it's a problem, and I think that there's an art form to keeping it simple, but you also want production value. And sometimes production value takes the big lights, it takes a generator, it takes a bigger crew, it takes something, something that maybe we don't have here or that we have less of here.
Right.
Because from a crew standpoint, I'm seeing in the last couple of years crews dwindle in size, and I get the call where they say, okay, this one's going to be run and gun. Well, what job isn't run and gun nowadays? It just seems like that's like a trend.
Yeah.
and maybe that's just a Phoenix thing, because over in L.A., New York, where they have stages and they have a union, and it's just more streamlined, maybe.
And it's more parceled out, right? They have like 4 people on a props job.
Yeah.
Somebody who's shopping, somebody who's driving the truck, somebody who's pointing, somebody who's moving, right?
Yeah.
They have a lot more
Teamsters
roles in
to drive
certain-
the vehicles.
in one of those types of cities. Yeah, it's interesting. And I tend to be a little, well, to go back to your question, I was going to say I tend to be a little scrappy, so I'm guilty of trying to pull those types of shoots together a little bit. And I think part of that's just my background is that's just kind of how I started working. But no, in terms of bringing in people from out of town, it's sort of interesting. Obviously, we want to support Arizona. We want to support our crew. There's a ton we can do here. And honestly, sometimes it's easier for me because I have to look that person in the eye next month, but I don't have to look the guy from LA in the eye next month.
Totally.
So there's some accountability there, I think.
For sure.
Not to say that anybody from out of town's doing a bad job or doesn't care, but at the end of the day, we know each other and there's some value in that, I think.
Oh yeah.
And same with posts. I feel like it's easier sometimes to just be able to go down the street and sit together for a minute and look at things when we're doing the post work. So, and same thing, we have to. They want to do a good job because they want the next job, whereas the guy in LA or Minneapolis or wherever for post maybe doesn't anticipate there being a second job, right? So there's some stuff to that. I know people here work really hard to manage their reputations and to get the next job and to take care of us and take care of our clients. So there's something to be said for that. Let's see. I know what Reister would say is it's our responsibility to our client to give them the best product.
For sure. That's understandable.
And occasionally there is a reason to go out. Like, for example, we were talking about shooting something with a Phantom recently. And so the conversation was, okay, do you get that from out of town? We were looking for a certain kind of studio that would accommodate certain kind of ovens, basically. And we found a solution. It just took a couple of phone calls, but we found a solution. But there were a turnkey studios that already had this in Dallas because they do a lot of work with certain brands that happen to be in Dallas, right? So there's Chuck E. Cheese and Pizza Hut and some of those, right? So there's sometimes there's a technical reason to look either in a different city for a location, or if there's a certain kind of food stylist or a certain kind of director. So not every single thing we're going to have the right solution for here, but man, it's most of it,
What could we use here?
There's not a lot that we don't have. Well, first of all, we have this amazing new props house.
Yeah, Pirate Booty Props.
Which is pretty fabulous.
Yeah, cheers.
But there's stuff developing all the time, So there's a few lenses, there's probably a few cameras, there's certain kinds of that studio that could fit still and video and what were some of the things? I think it was mostly the pizza ovens that were already there,
Okay.
So it was studios that already were equipped with those types of things and they're more industrial. So that's really specialized and it's not a shoot that we have 20 times a year, right? It's a
Sure.
shoot that we have once or twice a year.
Totally.
So anyway, there's a few things, I guess, but it doesn't seem like we bring in all that many things, at least not on the jobs I'm working on. I tend to get the lower budget. This is going to take a little more hand holding and post types of jobs because I'm willing, I'm willing to do it and I enjoy it. It's fun. So, and a lot of those don't require it, So I feel like there's a ton we can do here. We have great directors, amazing producers, amazing crew, and what's incredible is I can plan a shoot here in, half the time, right? Less than half the time, because I can text. And every one of you guys, Justin has done it a lot, will answer in the evening, on the weekends, early in the morning, while they're driving to another job. So, but it's really interesting too. A lot of it's relationships. So just speaking of Justin and Jarrod, I know there was a client here that we introduced him to, and he left his job and went to a different place out of state. But that guy still hires Justin and Jarrod all the time. He could get someone there to do that job, I think. But he likes them, he trusts them, he knows what they're going to do, he knows what they're going to get. So a lot of it's about relationships.
For sure.
Yeah. I think it's a
Who is
super
that?
important part of it. Who is that?
Who is that?
Do you want me to say it out loud
Yeah,
right
I
now?
don't remember
Peter.
who that could be.
It's
Peter.
Peter.
Oh, Peter. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I see Peter like once a month.
Right. You know,
great.
and
Yeah.
it's awesome because he trusts you guys and he
Mm-hmm.
knows you guys. He knows what he's going to get and that you're going to take care of him. You're always going to show up and like that stuff's. So we have that covered in this town like crazy, you know?
But like, is there something that we don't have? Like, what do we need? Because in talking to some people who want to do some features here, they always say infrastructure. We
Right.
don't have the infrastructure. Or people will say, well, if a lot of work comes here, if we get the film tax incentive, we're only like 2.5 crews deep, and then like we're out of people. You know, so
Well,
is it
that
people
could
that
be.
we need? Is that what it is, or
Well, the tax incentive, I think, would help a ton, right? It would inject a lot of money and it'll bring a lot of people.
you think so?
So I think that would be the most helpful thing because then just everything else will follow. I think it might take a second, little cart before horse on a few things, but
Well, but I've also heard people say that we almost have a tax incentive built into our economy here because the cost of living is so
Oh, yeah.
cheap here. It's so easy to live. And someone who did the math about how much it would cost to shoot their project in L.A., New Mexico, and Arizona. L.A. and New Mexico have some incentives. Arizona doesn't, and it was still cheaper to shoot it in
yeah,
Arizona.
I'm
you
not
know?
terribly surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't. In terms of what we don't have that we need, there might be some gear. There's might be some lenses. These are things I know that we've brought in.
Anamorphics, he's running into that a lot.
We've brought those in a little
Yeah.
bit, and what's really interesting, what I find cool, because this isn't just a me thing. A lot of people think this way is like, what can we put in front of the camera, right? Like, let's spend the money where you can see it.
Yeah.
And the first time I did a spot that used lenses like that we brought in from out of town, I posted it after it aired. And I got a couple of comments from people, in the business who were like, where are those lenses? Those are not in Phoenix. They could actually see them.
Wow.
So that was cool. So there's probably a few things that are worth bringing in or that would be nice to have. I know that crews get really light or not light, stretch thin, right?
Yeah.
Like March is a really busy month. There's certain months where it's really busy. So yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have more people, but at the same time, you guys everybody needs the work too, and you have more people and less work per person. So, and I know
Sure.
like you're one of the busiest people I know, you're going constantly,
Yeah.
but you have this business, you have your, rentals, your trucks, your actual crew work,
Yeah.
and then all of the paperwork and all this stuff. So
So much paperwork.
it's irons in the fire.
Yeah.
So much paperwork.
So much paperwork.
Yeah. So there's certain people who I think are stretched super thin. There's probably people who want more. I know there's people who want more work. But the more people you bring in, then it starts to compromise how much, the people who are here are getting. So I don't really know what the balance is
It's
there.
a balance, yeah. And yeah, who knows what that is.
So it would be awesome to have more film work here.
Like narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be amazing. But
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just like you got to have people who have figured out that this is a great place to do it, And every time we do bring in someone from out of state, they are crazy about the crew, right? That's never the problem. They love everybody that they work with. So one of the reasons we bring people in is when we have to 3-bid jobs. So like, for example, the state of Arizona, if it's over $5,000 for one vendor, so if it's a production company, for example, is a lot of times going to be over $5,000, or like a director in certain cases. If it's over $5,000 to one vendor, you have to 3-bid it. So they do that to make sure the creative is competitive, the budget is competitive, all the execution. So we'll pick. Usually we reach out to production companies, to reps. I'll always start with our local production companies, We use production companies, reps. There's people out there that have director rosters, and we'll say, throw us all your directors. But in those cases, we usually don't have anybody come out that isn't a director and maybe like their producer that they use or their DP that they use. So that's one way that we get people in from out of town. But a lot of the times they're paired with a local production company. And if they're not, they're definitely paired with local crew. Like, it doesn't make any sense to have more than 2 or 3 people, 3 or 4 people travel in for that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Because it gets expensive, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
And at
For
the
sure.
end of the day, you want it in front of the camera. So we definitely do bring in directors from out of town sometimes. And then I kind of lost my train of thought there. So what else do we bring from? And we do some post out of state too. There's one particular post house that I'm using a fair bit in Orange County, but I met them here and they used to be here.
Okay.
And the main guy I work with moved. His wife got a job out of state, and so I do use them.
But that's based off of a pre-existing relationship. Back to
That was
it's all
here.
about
Yeah.
relationships. Yeah.
We met at a to-go counter getting food at the old rice paper downtown.
Oh, okay.
And we were sitting there forever for our food and waiting, and we started chatting. And then I asked him what he did, and he goes on and tells me this whole story about all the work that they do. And he asked me what I did, and I told him, I'm a producer at Reister, and he's like, "Can I show you my reel?" So that was like 7 years ago, and we
Nice.
still work together. But now all that post stuff, we do so much of it online. But we have great options. We have so many great options for post. In this town, whether it's bigger, small jobs, color, VFX, like event coverage, like we have really great options. So we don't have to go out too often. So
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
no, it's good. We're super lucky.
Well, so what kind of, you said earlier, you said you would like to see more film narrative projects coming here. Any other types of jobs? Like I guess we're a location state, so people come here mostly because of the vistas and the
Right,
sunsets
right.
and the sunrises. Not because we have super big, studio lots or anything like that. Are there other types of jobs that you would like to see come here more? Or would film be the one, like the cherry on top, that would bring it all together?
Man, I don't know. I probably should have thought about that a little bit more. So it was kind of interesting to me. Obviously it would bring a lot of money. It would bring a lot of work,
Yeah.
right? Those kinds of
Consistent.
things. I haven't been exposed to that a lot just because I haven't worked on a lot of films. I've worked on 1 or 2 shorts, just very small roles in those. So we did a job in Atlanta that I was producing. And the reason that we picked the location was because we were talking to real people. And they were patients that we didn't want them all to travel. And all of them lived there. We flew in one girl and her mom from New York, and then everybody else lived there. So it made sense to go to where they were. So, I always start with a circle of trust. Like I ask somebody, do you know anybody here? And
Referrals.
so it's a lot of phone calls and texts, right? But eventually I end up with a crew that everybody there knows somebody that started with this first or second phone call I made. And so that gives me some confidence that maybe I can pull off what we're about to do, which is
Sure.
nice. But what was really interesting, and maybe this is me being naive just because I haven't been super exposed to it in my role or like what I've done in Phoenix. But when I called people, they were like, "Oh no, I work in commercial. No, I work in film." And so the crew was very like, not divided, not like there was no like controversy there, but they had a niche.
Yeah.
That they did.
And this was where was this?
It was
again?
in Atlanta.
This was in Atlanta. Okay, gotcha. Interesting.
And so I'd call a props person, I'd call a camera person, and they all sort of had this response. So I realized it wasn't like one person who was like, I do
Right.
film, and so therefore, I don't do commercials. So, but it was kind of it was the way that they work. And so here, I feel like I'm sure there's definitely those people who have those roles that tend to be commercial. We have a lot of people who do a lot of sports here, So there are those people that have sort of found their thing. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And I don't know what that does to the quality, right? Is it because they're doing that type of work, they raise the bar a little bit? Or I don't know if it does or not. So I think that would be like an interesting thing to understand more, but I don't really know.
That actually kind of made me think of a question I had regarding new talent behind, in the crew level. Do you ever kind of keep an eye out at film festivals? And like obviously word of mouth is huge. You were
Yeah.
talking about the conversation at Rice Paper and whatever. But do you try to, find that next big? Would it be a director, another producer, a DP? An art department person at like a film festival? Like how do like people listening and watching this right now who are trying to get in, they're always like wondering, how do I get in? And we all have our different stories.
Yeah.
Are film festivals a valid showcase to get in, or would that only be for narrative? Like it can't cross over to the commercial?
That's a good question. So I'm kind of the worst at that stuff. I always have every year, I put like when the film festivals are coming up, I put them in my calendar. And a month from now, look at tickets, figure out when you're going to go. And I always end up either working through them or I have other plans
Yeah.
or I have a trip planned or something like that. So I'm
That's
actually
kind of me too.
I'm kind of terrible at actually making time for that stuff. No, I think it's a great option and a great way to get your name out there. I know Misty.
Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Misty's amazing. And
Yes.
she's edited quite a few things that have ended up in film festivals now. She's incredible. One of my favorites.
She's great.
So I think, things like that can give someone who's got an opportunity to work on those types of jobs great exposure. And people should be paying attention, I mean, her work is amazing. The people she's working with, the people she's choosing to work with are great.
She's making good
which,
choices.
yeah, I think she gets a lot of calls for work, and I'm not saying she's like in a position where she's constantly turning work down, but I think she definitely tries to work with people she enjoys working with, which is great. So, no, I think that's probably a great avenue. I don't spend as much time there as I should, for sure. So, I also I have people call, and I think the biggest thing for me, we have people call all the time, like, hey, we're shooting, hey, we're editing, we're doing these things. Like, if you need anything, it helps me a lot to meet people, because if at the end of the day, if a job comes down and I have to think how am I going to solve this problem? Because a big part of my job is just being resourceful, right? And
sure.
how can I do it in this amount of time and this budget? Because those are always the thing, time and money.
Problem solving.
And so who can I trust, or who's going to know who's going to know the solution for this?
Jarrod will.
And so
I hope.
That's who you call.
and so that is, I think that's a really big part of it. So if I have a chance to meet people, because I can have people in my email, but when I need to go search it, if I have, somebody in my phone, props or trucks or, grip or shooters or whatever, that helps a lot. And every time I think I know everybody, I realize how much I don't know everybody. I mean, I met someone here tonight, which is really cool.
It's amazing all the circles out there. I know.
So the other day I texted, I needed a camera. I want a certain camera. We were shooting something internally. We wanted our 2 cutaway cameras to be the same. And somebody had already found one to rent. One of the guys who was shooting at Reserve found one to rent, and he just wanted another one. So I was like, okay, let me just text somebody and I'll find one. So I texted Brett Kalmbach, and he gave me 2 seconds later, he texted me back with this guy's name. So he gave me the name of this guy. I texted him, told him how I got his number, and I was like, hey, do you have this camera at this time? So, and this is kind of the rough budget I have. So this is so cool. He was going to drop it off, or I was going to pick it up. I forget what happened, and we got busy, and it didn't happen that day. So the next day, when I really needed it, he says, I'll give you the pickup information. So I said, okay, sounds good. Didn't think anything of it. So I read the pickup information. I'm literally driving. He gives me his home address. He gives me his keypad to get into his apartment.
Whoa.
And he was not there, and it was just sitting in his entryway. And so literally all I know about this guy is he knows Brett. He owns this camera. I know where he lives now.
You never met him.
And he has an amazing shoe collection because it was all in his entryway. So I had literally never met this person, and I thought, very generous and kind and trusting and sweet.
Oh my gosh,
right?
yeah.
And I just walked into his entryway and I grabbed the camera. It was all there, and I left. And then it was cool because he came and picked it up 2 days later, and we got to meet. And so now I have this person that I will never forget that story. I'll never forget this
huge.
guy. It was so nice.
Yeah.
But that's Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
There's some really good people here. We're super lucky.
Well, and also, you touched base on the fact that we put our trust in strangers constantly.
All
We
the
talked
time.
about that last time in our first episode, and it always amazes me how gear will be driving away with a stranger, and I'm pretty sure it'll come back. And it does.
Thousands and thousands of
I know.
thousands of dollars.
I mean,
worth of
you-
gear that just walks out the door.
Totally. You make them sign a rental agreement, and you get a certificate of insurance. You gotta, be smart about it. But so much trust with strangers.
Well, and that it's going to come back in one piece and be clean and show up the time it's supposed to come back. Well, I think about that all the time. So we work on jobs constantly for, 2 weeks to 3 months before we ever even call a crew person, right, to come join us. And, that's obviously the longer end is if there's like multiple rounds of creative or bidding directors or, those, because that all takes weeks, right, each stage. But then we make phone calls and we assemble a team and people show up and are as invested in making that amazing as I am after working on it for 3 or 4 months. And it blows my mind. It makes me emotional. Like I want to cry at the end of these days. Like it makes me, it's amazing, right? So somebody's showing up for 1 day or 3 days, whatever the shoot is, and a couple of days of prep, a day of wrap, whatever it is everybody's got, but their investment feels so genuine, right? And it's amazing. I mean, you've done it.
Yeah, it
You've
is
come
amazing.
in and hustled like it's your project.
Well, but it trickles down from the top.
Right.
And I think that, if you're the producer and, you have a couple of key people that are at the top above the line and we see that they care, it trickles down and then we care,
Yeah. Well,
and
that's good to hear.
that's a huge thing because I've been on shoots where the above the line doesn't really seem to care. And then the question is, well, why should I care?
Yeah. Well, that's true. That makes sense.
But I mean,
Hopefully we're all
no
caring.
pressure, no pressure.
Right.
But no, it's true. And I say from people that are on crew below the line, we appreciate it when the above the line people have their act together. They care. They have an actual like vision and a game plan. I guess from a crew standpoint, we just appreciate seeing something well done. And that gets us excited, and that gets us in the game.
Even the little things
Get on board with
matter, just
All the little, so many little
any
things.
little thing.
Yeah, no, and like the least amount of like, oh, by the ways, did you bring this or have this? Like, that should have been talked about in pre-production beforehand. Yeah, and that bums us out because then I take it personally, and I'm like, oh well, they didn't ask for it, but I wish I had that on the truck to give,
Right.
and then I'm bummed out, and then it sets the course for the rest of the day, and
So what helps, obviously communication, getting a couple of people together to talk so it
Sure.
isn't just, assumptions being made, but what helps you guys,
well, I mean, definitely having forethought,
A script.
a script,
Usually there's
well, a call sheet, the night before.
Wait, you got to show your new shirt.
Oh,
You got to
yeah,
show
yeah.
the hashtag,
If anybody hasn't
I don't know.
seen the new shirts,
which are very nice.
Call sheets
Very nice.
matter,
Call
'cause
sheets
they do
matter.
matter.
Why do call sheets matter?
well, if anything, call sheets matter so that an out-of-town DP is here, and it was all getting to know you at 5 a.m. in the morning, and then it's like, what's their name again? And I have to work with them all day, and it's just as simple as like, okay, cool, that's their name, and they can do the same for me, and then.
And book you again next time they come into town?
Well,
or?
I keep those call sheets totally because I can use them if I'm going out of state or if I need to refer you. I get calls from people going like, "Hey, I'm in, whatever state. Do you know anybody here?" And I can flip through them or we have a podcast now, and if this gets going, I can reference the call sheets and
Yeah.
like send it to people and go, "Hey, create a buzz." It just helps create a more solid team, I think.
For sure.
Yeah.
Or you meet someone new on a crew and you want to recommend them later, got their
Totally.
names.
planning
Totally.
your day out. Like usually there's a schedule on there. You know what to be ready for when it comes up.
So you aren't just reacting to everything at the last second.
Yeah.
Well, and from a crew side of things, so let's say there's a couple different vendors. Let's say that Pirate has supplied G&E, and there's a truck, and Reelman supplied like the camera and a tripod. Well, at the end of the day, people are scurrying around and tired. What if the tripod ends up on the Pirate truck? They could go down the vendor list and go, "Oh no, camera and tripod came from Reelman. We need to put that on the Reelman truck." And because I actually recently had that happen where the gear went on the wrong trucks. a good story is it was at the end of the night and everyone's tired, and we found out that they found out that the camera truck was going back to Real Men, and I had subbed a Fisher dolly, and so instead of us having to go drop the Fisher off, it's like, hey, you already going to Real Men? Oh, well, here's the Fisher. Done.
Efficiency.
Efficiency
that's
for
huge.
sure. It is huge. And this is something that we should be training PAs, because these PAs are going to be our future bosses. So be nice to PAs, because
Be nice to PAs.
you never know who they're going to be.
Well, on call sheets as well with PAs, you could go down the list if you're doing a lunch run.
Oh yeah,
Oh, that's true.
for taking lunch orders.
Okay, I got that person, I got this person, and then you can go through the departments as well.
Definitely. Or if there's a safety meeting, is everybody here? There's so much to think about, and there's so much going on, and there's a time frame for everything, and it's just a reference. So I don't know, and we're seeing them die, and it's just a text or an email scribbled together. It works. We make it work. We're problem solvers. But if we can get a call sheet, people, it really helps us, and we appreciate it. And it kind of sets the tone and lets us know, like, oh, okay, so tomorrow I'm going to be working a job that they sent out a call sheet. Not at the 11th hour. They sent it out at a good hour. And,
Yeah, I've been guilty of that a few times.
I mean,
but
like,
no, it
things happen.
It's also really good to hear, like, what helps,
Yeah.
Like, it's really good to hear, because you forget sometimes, take stuff for granted, and now we don't want to print, so we're like, oh, we'll make it digital, right? And that's good. Like, we need to be saving the planet.
Sure.
But like, yeah, it's really good to hear what actually makes a difference. This
Yeah.
is important. It's all part of the same machine, right?
Oh, for sure it is. For sure.
I think maps matter.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Not just an address, but take a shot of the map so you know the difference between Apple Maps and Google Maps.
And sometimes
they'll take you different places.
They will.
That's true.
And I've been noticing a trend of people not putting an address, but putting like longitude, latitude.
Oh my goodness.
And
I
it's-
would never get there.
Mad.
It's kind of weird. Like I would never think to do that, and yet I feel like in the last couple of months, I've heard people going like, "Man, they're doing this to me again, giving me like this like dot on a map that's longitude, latitude instead of like an address." Now, if we're in the middle of Monument Valley
Right.
or whatever, like okay,
In the forest where there's no roads or anything.
it totally makes sense. It has its time and a place, but what? Pin drop, yeah. But also, to be devil's advocate, we rely so much on technology. And so having a printed out map,
When you don't have service,
It's
or
so easy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what if your phone dies?
right.
I mean,
What
it's-
if? By the way, mine does every
Yeah.
day between 10 a.m. and 2:30 p.m.
Oh no,
I'm one of those people.
new phone time.
No, I just use it a lot.
Oh, you just use it a lot. Yeah.
So everyone in my office teases me because I voice text constantly. So I just walk around voice texting. You get them a lot. You get them a lot. And I'm just on it a lot, right? So no, that totally happens. That's a good reminder. Like, just cover the bases, right? Have it a couple of ways.
Well, it makes me wonder, and I would love to actually talk to like somebody who has been working in the business forever. Like, how did they get call sheets to people before the internet? I mean, they made the phone call and said, "Hey, it's this time at this place tomorrow," and did they mail the call sheet like a couple of days
don't know.
beforehand? Have we talked to anybody?
Good question.
I would love to know.
Larry
this.
Nemi would know.
Larry
Like,
Nemi
there's
would
people
know.
who would know. I don't know.
that weird?
Every call sheet I've ever used has been emailed. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're so spoiled.
Yeah.
And
I do remember the days of we didn't have GPS, right? And had
Mm-hmm.
to like Google Sheets and print out from here to here and here to here.
MapQuest, yeah, totally.
So I do remember that, but I'm not old enough to know the. So
I've been, one of my first shoots, they actually gave the call sheet for the next day on the previous day. So
Oh.
at least for multiple like days,
yeah,
you got it on set and you're ready for the next day.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then also everyone's on set, so you're insured to get it in people's hands, and then you just know it's peace of mind.
Right.
The first day. Maybe you had to walk in and go to the office and pick it up.
get it the first time.
Yeah, but
and then you have it for the next day.
Yeah, but
makes
you
sense.
you can't.
The day before you shoot, you walk into their office. You pick up the call sheet.
But people are just they get crazy and scatterbrained, and because we work with a lot of crazy people, and I mean that in the best way.
We work with a lot of. We are.
I can be crazy.
People.
We are crazy. We're all crazy in our own special way.
Yeah.
So it's the art of dealing with crazy people. is what it is.
I think this business pulls that.
Yeah.
Pulls that a little bit, right?
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, I mean, it's workaholics. It's people who are up for the challenge, people who are, want to be moving constantly, project based, because there's like some reward in your brain that happens with these project based jobs, right?
I think that we're our own worst enemy, and I know I am. I never feel like I'm doing enough, and yet like
Which
I'm
is
constantly
crazy,
moving.
right?
I don't know. I always think like I could be doing more. It's just
It's
stupid.
literally never a thought I've had about you when I work with you, that you could be doing more. You're amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and you're great to work with too. So every time
Thank
that I get the call, it's always
Yes.
it's always a good thing. Yeah, we're very happy to work with you too. So, and that's why you're on the show today. So,
It was a lot of fun. It's really exciting.
I think that we have a basket here filled with random questions.
Oh, this is
So this could be like I don't even know. Like Paige was about to spill the beans earlier, and I'm like, don't tell me, because like I want this to be.
If Paige wrote the questions, I feel much better.
Well, I don't know. She was laughing earlier, so we were
All right,
calling
I'm
this.
game. I'm
this was
game.
the basket case. I was gonna put a case underneath of it, and it was this could make you into a bat. Oh, it was a play on words, whatever. So, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Oh, you're definitely going.
I'm going first.
Yeah,
Okay,
100%.
Okay, so I haven't
There's no
read
question there.
any of these or looked at any of these. The question is, you're on a commercial set. The animal wrangler announces over Channel 1 that the tarantulas have escaped their cages. Plot twist. The script doesn't call for tarantulas. What do you do?
The script doesn't call for tarantulas.
Okay.
That's a good question. Very nicely written. Do you have a copywriting future?
Well, knowing that there are people out there that are deathly afraid of spiders. Actually, just found out that Lauren Berger is definitely deathly
doesn't
afraid
surprise me.
of spiders. So we don't want. So Lauren, it's going to be okay. So basically, if Lauren was on set, I would not tell her.
Information where it needs to stay. Contain the hysteria.
Well, this is a good example of harboring the information. You don't want to grab the megaphone and go, the tarantulas are loose, because then it's chaos and then everything breaks down. So certain people need to know. Certain people don't need to know. Are tarantulas poisonous?
So I actually just had to look that up recently because there was one right in the middle of my campsite in October. And I had to look up what happened. So they're really not that bad. It's if you ingest the hairs on the bottom of their stomach or
What?
something. If you ingest the hairs, I don't remember. Maybe the hairs are everywhere.
Which I
might
don't
have made up
plan
the
on
stomach
ever
part.
doing.
So that's when you're really in trouble, and everything else you'll be fine. But yeah, they're just very creepy. I will definitely give them that.
Wow. Well, I got to give props to the animal wrangler for even touching those things. I think that they are beautiful creatures. I don't need to touch them. I can look at them and be happy that they're in this world, and that's about it. So, I hope I answered that.
I think
okay.
you did it. I think
Is that okay?
I like the containment of information.
Yeah.
It's actually a really good reminder.
Well, and it's so opposite of how I usually go. Like, the more information, the better. The more communication, the better. The more we're all in the know, the better. But that is kind of an exception to the rule.
Need to know situation.
Yeah.
So you're saying like don't shut the entire production down.
I wouldn't shut the whole
and
production
say,
down.
Look for these tarantulas.
I mean, especially because plot twist, the script doesn't call for tarantulas. Now,
Who brought them? Who messed up?
right? Yeah.
Why are they there in the first
We
place?
meant to bring tacos because there was tacos in the script, but instead we brought tarantulas. Whoops.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case,
it
like
might
there was a
change.
creative choice, and
It's like,
that
I'm
changed.
just gonna
Yeah.
bring the tarantulas today because they might want.
You never know. It's like
yeah.
having that extra light on your truck.
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. All right, your turn.
All
Your
right.
turn.
All right, let's see what we got here. All right. My eyes are getting old.
Uh-oh.
I'm doing that thing now. That started at 40. Okay, so if you were on a desert island, what piece of film equipment would you have or could not live without? So this is going to be to the horror of people who own actual film equipment, but I might say my phone because I can get a picture, I can get a video, I can get some audio. Like
Yeah.
if I absolutely had to have something that was super user friendly, this might be it. But I should answer in terms of
Well, no, but because recently they've been shooting some commercials, like even like a Nike commercial
Yeah.
recently. They specifically wanted to shoot it on the new iPhone.
all on the phones.
Yeah.
The cameras are amazing. I don't have the newest one, but anyway.
Now they have 4 cameras on the back of
yeah,
it
they're
because
kind of
one
amazing.
wasn't enough.
Now, is that if you were trying to survive on the island?
Yeah. This is like
Like-
this is like bare bones. But if I'm actually trying to make a beautiful film or something on an island,
Yeah.
so okay, I'd want a camera that does audio also.
Which is your phone.
But I mean, gosh, this is kind of hard to beat for that scenario. But so if I'm on a desert island, there's a few things I want. I've got to have. I can't live without like eyebrow makeup. That's
Okay.
a must.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's
Of course.
certain things a girl wants. Of
course.
Doesn't matter if she's alone on a desert island.
Totally.
So for film gear, I would want. Yeah, you know, it might be my laptop so I could edit.
Okay.
If I absolutely was bare bones.
With
I
a
think-
fully charged battery, because where are you going to plug it in once
with
the
a
battery's
fully
there?
charged battery, that's a good point.
And your phone, you said, goes dead at 10 a.m.?
Well, on days, it has been known to happen. Now, on those days, I'm usually laying in bed looking at Instagram for an hour before I get up and get ready.
Yes.
But yeah, so anyway, so that's not a great film equipment answer, but you know, you can get a lot done.
Well, but isn't it interesting how much things have changed? How it went from the film camera, you know, like they say that the word grips came from the fact that the workers had to hold the tripod legs because the camera moved so much, and you know, all this crazy stuff. And now we're shooting Nike commercials on our phone,
Right.
And it looks great.
Actually, I know it's not equipment, but another body, right? To move all this stuff.
Well, yes.
There is that.
And you know what?
Very valuable. Very valuable.
I like that you
if you're
said
trying
that
to
because
shoot something.
sometimes, you know, in this world of AI
Right.
and technology, I think a lot of us worry if we're needed anymore.
Oh man, it takes a village. Are you kidding me?
I think it does too, but you wonder sometimes. You know,
No, we need the people. We need the people for sure.
we do. Well, and also the people. I mean, we're people, and so I think that the technology blinds us sometimes and makes us forget that we're all human beings, and like we want basic things, you know? And I feel like it's always good to get back to basics. I feel like this week we kind of got back to basics a little bit.
Everybody
And
had to slow down a little bit.
totally. And I definitely had many moments where I was very thankful and appreciative for the blessings that I have and the experiences that I've had. Got to think about my mortality a little bit, and I think that is super healthy. I think this week, amongst all the craziness, amongst all the unhealthy sickness, was mentally very healthy for a lot of us,
Yeah.
and for I would say for myself anyway.
Yeah, slow down. And, you know, I've gotten calls and emails from people who aren't working. Everything's come to a halt. A lot of freelancers, a lot of voice talent. You know, there's definitely have to be thankful for the work when we have it. And then, you know, hopefully this will all get over a little faster than it's currently projected, and,
Right.
and everybody's making smart decisions to kind of be contained and stay in small groups and stay home. And yeah, you know,
Yeah.
we're really lucky to be here, and it's in a blink, you know, it's in a blink of an eye that everything could change, like our industry, our economy, the role Phoenix has in all of that. You know, it's definitely, you gotta like take pause and be thankful for sure. So
You know, and it's also weird to acknowledge the fact, acknowledge how important entertainment is to us human beings. I know I definitely took that for granted. Like, okay, like, yeah, there's going to be some game on, or yeah, there's going to be some festival, or some band's going to play, or. And when it all stops, it's it's almost lonely. You know, like, so is that why we are in the entertainment business, because we don't want to be lonely, or like why are we doing this? You know, like, why do you do audio, Justin? Like because like you
can't
want to
put
just
me on
keep
the spot.
You're putting me on the
hear
spot.
people, you know?
I
or-
do it because I was doing music first, and
Right.
I just kind of moved into.
Evolution. You don't always see it coming, right? You know?
Yeah, I found that it was fascinating doing audio and music.
well,
To know everything.
but music is like artistic expression through sounds,
Right.
And
So
but now you do a lot of like,
to be a better musician, understand how sound works,
right.
so you can manipulate.
Well, would you say that recording people talking has helped you understand how to record musical instruments any better?
Of course.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
Well, and with you, I don't know if this is something that you want more or less of in your life,
Duh.
but I think you are very willing to do. You obviously you're around productions, you're around sets. You're willing to you can do a lot of things. Like we did a whole shoot, just the two of us, with cameras and
Hell, I'm doing this all right now by
audio.
myself.
You know, but
And
you
drinking beer.
and drinking a beer.
Hey, we're
But
drinking wine.
you do a lot, you know. So I think that's kind of a cool thing too. Is I mean, it's a little on the scrappier side, and sometimes that may not be the best thing because obviously it's easier if you can focus on one thing. But you know, sometimes it just calls for it, right? So.
Sure. Well, and that makes me think of the towns that are working a lot with film tax incentives tend to be union towns, and we're a right to work state.
Right to not work state.
Work or not work, yes,
Yes,
we
it
we
goes
can
both
make that
ways.
choice. And do we need to lose to get these films in, to get these narratives in? Would we have to kind of like give up a little bit of our right to work state way of life, mentality, whatever it is, and bring in some of that union way of doing things to make it happen here? Because another thing that I thought about actually today was, what is the difference between us and Louisiana, us and Georgia? Well, okay, they have a film tax incentive. Well, okay, yeah, but they're making content. What is preventing us here in Arizona from making content? I don't know what's preventing us from doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's people coming in with money,
Investors.
investors.
Yeah. Who have faith in us, the crew, or the powers that be to.
That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, yeah, I'm not familiar enough with those markets to know exactly what they're doing to make it work. And, I know the APA is talking about all of this and, probably need to be, I probably need to be a little more engaged in all of that. Yeah, I think it's interesting that we have great locations. We have amazing crew. We have a lot of great technology. We have incredible post. We have, we have really good people who are super, super willing to work hard. So, I don't know for sure. I mean, the sound stages are great, and certainly for certain levels of productions they're needed. But like Netflix came in, the stage that we rented when we went to Atlanta, I was able to get in there because Netflix had booked the whole, month, 2 months, whatever they had booked. And they then, if they weren't there on a given day, then he could kind of retroactively pay them back for that day and rent it out. That was kind of the deal.
Okay.
So there's money, right?
Sure, lots.
There's a commitment from people who have the cash to sustain. And a lot of our projects are, a long day shoot for us is 3 days at Reister, right? That's a
Yeah.
long day shoot. Two is a big shoot. So, and I know there's people who are doing bigger shoots than that, but like I just had a 3-day shoot for Peter Piper and it was a lot of fun and it was a good crew, but like I don't have very many 3-day shoots. Yeah. So, it's kind of interesting to see, I don't know what would have to change. I think it's a great question. I know there's people who are more educated about that, but I feel like we have the bones, we have the bones here for it.
Yeah.
So
Well, are you seeing whenever you guys are
I don't know if we
making?
have the governor for it, but we have the bones.
Oh, well, I thought. Do you feel like the governor is supportive of film in Arizona? Or?
Well, I haven't spoken to him, so I mean, this is all from my opinion, I guess, based on just a little bit that I've heard, but it doesn't seem like it.
Really?
Doesn't
Interesting.
seem like it to me.
Because I remember working on one of his campaigns to run for, I think, was he treasurer first, and then he became the
can't
governor,
remember.
something like that. And he has his own team. But the politicians all have their own marketing team, so I don't know, if that really means anything. But I mean, yeah. So that is another great question. Like, does it need to be supported by people in the government?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big financial decision for the state. And I think when I shouldn't say too much about this because I haven't made myself super informed. So but I think the legislature and the policy behind it, what their ability to bring now it's it costs. It's a tax break on one side, but it costs on the other, and I just don't think there's been the motivation. For whatever reason for it, which is it seems kind of crazy to me. But there's a business decision behind all of that
Right.
at the end of the day, I think. So
Right.
yeah,
And I think also people need to be excited about it. They need to go like, oh, cool, there's a movie in town, instead of like, oh, there's a movie in town and there's going to be road closures and it's only helping a small group of people and not everybody.
right.
And I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like I know Randy Murray has been
Huge advocate.
huge, and I feel bad because I almost feel like, well, what else can we say and do? There's examples out there of other states doing it and it's working, and people are working, and there's lots of money coming through it. What else do we need to do to prove it to these people?
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I mean, because Arizona also has a really amazing history of Westerns, and John Ford, John Wayne, and it was here and then it left, and it's just it's too bad.
Yeah,
It's just too
no,
bad.
for sure. But there's a lot of good stuff going on. I just went to like a viewing about I have to look up the name.
Yeah.
Something about
No.
purple sage. Did you guys?
Well, it's good thing you brought it to the desert island, so you have it at your disposal.
That's right.
there.
I have my preferred film cure here. But Quantum Leap, and
Yes.
I heard about it through Misty. But
Yeah.
they made a documentary about the Arizona Opera performing like an old Western, basically. And it was amazing. So I went and saw the documentary, and it was at
Purple Sage?
Purple Sage.
Yes, yeah,
Purple
yeah.
Sage, and it was at Scottsdale Center for Performing Arts. It was an evening during the week, and the place was packed.
Good.
And there were big, local supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Herberger family was there. It was really neat to see. So
Great.
people are getting behind it, but I think there's a little marketing part of that, and then there's like you're saying, not getting frustrated and supporting it as a community.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's
So-
some good stuff going on.
Well, because I think of Film Bar too,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw a post just yesterday or the day before about how they're not doing so well. And so, I mean, people are still going to the movie theater because movie theaters aren't closing down. And Film Bar is an independent company that, I mean, you can drink beer, alcohol, and watch a movie.
It's wonderful.
Like,
You could do that at Harkins too, and AMC.
yeah. And well, honestly, like, they're kind of like jumping on the bandwagon after, Film Bar and Alamo Draft House, was doing it.
But Film Bar's done some cool stuff too. They, film festival things there. They've hosted some Phoenix Ad Club events there. So I mean, they're participating in our community at a different level
Yeah.
than some of those other theaters too, which is really great. And so, and independent films and older films that are, we get a chance to see. So
Yeah.
we definitely need to support that for sure.
For sure.
Cult classic films.
There you go.
Yeah.
Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're so partial to Rocky Horror. You brought that up earlier.
People who love Rocky Horror love
Oh,
Rocky
they're
Horror.
all into it so much, so much.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, so what is next for you after we get over this? I mean, to let the audience know, we are in the midst of week 1 of coronavirus
Shutdown.
craziness shutdown, and so it's hard to
Wild
say
time.
what's next
Right.
because for me, I had a lot of jobs canceled this week.
Yeah.
But have had some. It's interesting. I had a phone call on Monday from New York, and they said, "Hey, do you guys carry Wi-Fi hotspots?" And I was like, I do. And they're like, okay. And that was it. I was like, oh.
That was the whole call.
Yeah. It was like, oh. So, so I just started speculating, like,
Yeah,
what does
yeah.
this mean? And it was Monday. So it's like they right in a Monday morning. So, so to give
Interesting.
hope, I feel like people are planning on what to do after all
Yeah.
of this. And so I know that that's a hard question, like what's next, but it's like, what are you kind of planning or would like to see happen next with projects?
Yeah, I
you?
mean, yeah, right now things are a little uncertain. Well, I'm hoping that we had some stuff canceled too. A few jobs one job that was like 95% of the way done. We just want to finish the last little tiny bit, approval and layback and get the final files. But anyway, we had a couple of smaller shoots that we had planned, got canceled. But overall, our clients are busy. We've had some clients that have had to close, restaurants, entertainment places, that kind of stuff, where a lot of people are congregating, and it just made more sense to have them close down. So we'll have to see what happens with all of that. And there's obviously no guarantees. Like, I'm hopeful that we can stay busy. And like this week, Reister had us, everybody work remotely. There was nobody in the building, and so I went in because it was just a lot easier to get stuff done from my computer and
Sure.
right next to the server and stuff. But there were like 3 or 4 people in the whole building anyway, so we just kind of kept to ourselves. But yeah, I mean, I think this brings up a couple of things. First of all, and as someone who used to freelance and may again, you never know, is you got to pay yourself first. Like, we have to save because there are no guarantees. And so I think that's like a really important reminder. And it's hard to do when you're paying your own taxes and you're paying your own insurance, and you never know when you're going to get paid from the people who are hiring you. And I totally get it. But I think that's a really, really important part for all of us, but people who are freelancing and dealing with ups and downs of whatever's happening in the economy or, things that we can't control. So I think that's really important. I think, what's next, we're always, there's one person in particular at Reister I sort of, I watch because he tends to look for ideas that are going to last a little longer than one cycle. So you guys know what we put into these commercials that get made sometimes, and they run for 2 or 3 months or something. And so there's one person there who's always looking for the project that will maybe do a little bit of good. And so every year I'm watching him and I'm trying to figure out what his next idea is going to be so I can be on that project. Is just finding something, whether it's a film, a short film, something that might end up in a film festival, supporting that a director friend of yours or whatever, and right, and getting to be a part of those types of projects, I think is like really important because that's the stuff that like feeds your soul,
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's really important. Like one of the projects this particular person came up with is our client was actually in California, so we did the shoot in California, which we don't go there for that many shoots, but they've been growing their tomatoes there for like 90 or 100 years, whatever it was. And they want to do something to give back to a community. So we made I made videos about it, but we made a garden at a school that was in a food desert area where they didn't have access to fresh foods, and they wanted to teach these kids about it. So like it was awesome. It was a really great project, and so I'm hoping that as a collective we can find projects we're excited about, and whether it's supporting a new production company, supporting. There's a new talent agent in town that we got some talent from a couple of weeks ago.
What are they called?
Priority Talent.
Oh,
I haven't even met them in person. We emailed and we got some talent from them, but they're brand new. I got some stuff in the mail from them, and then they had talent at the casting that we had. So whether it's supporting a new business, supporting a friend who's trying something out, I know Pedro made a film and a bunch of people jumped in to help him. So those types of projects where we can support each other, maybe make something that makes a difference, has a message that lasts a little bit longer. Like, I think that's the kind of stuff that obviously we all need the paycheck and we all need the work and we all need that stuff. And that's really important. Reister, it's billable hours, that kind of thing. But I think, at the end of the day, like we want to maybe make a little bit of a difference in what we're doing. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm hoping we can find. And right now, I feel like there could be some really interesting stories out there to tell. There's a lot of political work out there right now too, which is really important. I know a lot of that's paid and maybe biased, right? Because they're putting their own agenda and message out there. But we all need to hear what's going on. So I think anything that we can do that raises the level a little bit and helps our community grow and helps our production community here become stronger is like that's really important. And like where to spend the time.
So I mean, like somebody who is just trying to get in, what resources can they use? Can they? I mean, can they call? I mean, should they join the APA?
Oh
Should-
yeah,
you think so?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Like I haven't been super involved with it lately, but when I started, whatever it costs, like $150 or $100.
I think it's
or
even
something.
cheaper now,
Yeah,
you know.
and I got jobs off of that. I got a couple. 2 jobs from LA production companies that just needed boots on the ground here, people who knew where things were. And, it's a lot of fun. So I think the APA is really important. I think offering to work for free or cheap, like I encourage like our interns that come into Reister all the time to do that. That's what I did. And, I worked really cheap for United Way. I worked really cheap my first few PA jobs. I did family photography really cheap, and then word of mouth kind of. I mean that it makes a difference. I mean, eventually you have to stop that, right? And then you have to command what you're worth and all that stuff.
Right.
But sometimes you have to take the first step, I guess.
So people can contact Reister and say, hey, I want to intern or PA.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like we have an intern kind of management program. I work with interns a lot just because I interned at one point and I knew I wanted to get a lot out of it, and so I want them to get a lot out of it. But we have a group that manages that. They do interviews and stuff, and hire them every semester. I spend a lot of time with them, and then there's another producer at Reister, Robert Farthing, and then there's a print producer. So anybody who's doing still photos, there's a print producer, Bill Robbins, and most agencies have someone who's either freelancing there a lot as a producer or is there full time. So every one of the agencies has video needs. Everybody needs video. Like there's just no question.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great place to start, is call every single agency and figure out kind of who the contact is there for that. APA is really good. Going to every production company in town, and word of mouth. So if somebody else has the job that you want, right? Like whether it's craft services or grip or any of that stuff, and say, hey, if you need a hand, I'll work for cheap and shadow you, that kind of stuff. If you're getting started, like that's a great way to do it. Like how many times would you guys have like had an extra hand, doing what you're doing, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes you just want that, maybe don't, but
Every day.
every day.
Like,
So
let's get somebody in there.
yeah, I think all that goes a long way. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, but I know, it's an interesting time. So we'll
Yeah.
kind of see what happens.
No,
for sure.
totally. And I'm hoping that right now people are regrouping and getting to those scripts and those concepts, maybe recording some music, getting to all those things that were just on the list and they couldn't quite get to, and now we have time to do it.
And I think they are. There's still a lot of stuff moving. Nothing like, I know immediate shoots got canceled because we can't congregate, right? And we have to make smart, healthy choices as a community. But, we had a test. I was estimating something today that I knew wasn't going to happen because it was for like testimonial interviews at a hospital. I was well, that's just not going to happen right now. So I
Yeah.
sent the estimate knowing that was going to get put on hold, and that's fine. That stuff is going to happen. But like people have to advertise. People have to make content. They need stuff for their websites. They need stuff for their social. They need campaigns made. They need to be competitive. And
It's just
they're
the
going to
world
keep
we
making
live
stuff.
in.
They're going to keep making stuff.
Yeah.
There's no question.
We need content. It's just the internet is for real, and everybody has a phone, and it's just the way the world is right now. It's
Yeah.
not. It can't just stop.
No, it won't. It
So-
won't. It might delay a little, but it'll be. I think it's going to be okay. It's just this is a weird one. I mean, none of us have lived through this, right? So
No,
this is
it's a
we don't
first for
have-
me.
We don't know. So
Yeah, for sure. First for you, Justin.
First.
Yeah, you guys too. Yeah, all of us agreed. Well, I think that Justin, did you have any other questions, comments, anything you wanted to? You were very passionate over the phone the other night when we were talking, but I don't know. Now we're here, and it's
he's
just
had a beer.
yeah.
Well, I was
A
going
little
to
more
say,
relaxed.
is it good to have Arizona become very flourished with work?
Okay.
And
You mean
Like what are the
unionizing?
downsides if
If
it
we
gets
were gonna-
bigger?
unionize.
Well, I mean,
could-
technically there is a union here, 336, stagehand union, and they are connected to IATSE. But, it's also a right to work state. So, again,
Like
the
how many
balance.
productions would stop because you unionized?
I mean, I don't think that productions would stop, but because even in LA, there's non-union jobs. So,
And everybody has to be an employee there now too.
because of new
really?
regulation for freelancers. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, that makes me think like it would
That's
be
just the next step of unionizing.
over there, but
You
they're
know,
already
it's like
unionized.
everything it snowballs. Everything will snowball. So once you change one thing, it's going to open up for people to question the next.
Well, yeah, natural progression, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I kind of like want to keep Arizona nice and just how
Quaint?
Arizona is. Yeah.
It's a little quaint here.
Yeah, because once you make the next step, then it's just like, oh, let's go bigger, let's go bigger.
Yeah.
And then you just become like California.
Then there's no going back.
And then it's like, well, we don't want to be like California. We like Arizona. Let's just keep Arizona.
We
the
love
way Arizona
Arizona.
is.
We do. We do.
Why change? We don't need change.
Well, and it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna flip. I don't think it's gonna do a 180 overnight, right?
No.
Never is.
It'll
It just sneaks up on you.
little half glass empty over there.
yeah.
No, well, I mean, there's a lot that's working here, but we don't. I know everybody here would like more business too, so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I guess I need to do a little more research on that. I do know that sometimes when we call union production companies, but we can't, because the budgets are what the budgets are, right? So, if we can't kind of make that fit into it, they will often book through a non-union production company, like a sister company. I don't really know how all that works.
Right.
And I don't know how on the up and up all that is.
Well,
But I know it happens.
And that's the thing that I
There's
always wonder
workarounds.
about is you'll have production companies coming in and they'll go like, hey, we need, gaffer, key grip electric, whatever. And you're union, right? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not in 336, but it's a right to work state. And they're like, oh, well, it's a union job. And I go, well, it's a right to work state. So do you know how that works? Like how they've signed a contract with IATSE to say that they need to hire union people, but when they come to a right to work state, wouldn't they be under the law of the state that they're in?
Yeah, I would think so. Who would know that better? And I don't actually. So on the bigger jobs that would entail that, we hire production companies who I think know that stuff more clearly. Like, Caitlin from True Story and Mata from Productions 2 and Randy and Teresa and Andy from Randy Murray. I think they would probably be more in tune with that. Just because at a certain point, so I'll sometimes take a production and I'll hire who we need to hire and get insurance and do everything. On the planning side, and then just assemble a crew. But like at a certain point, I'd have to stop every other job and focus on that completely to pull it off in 2 weeks or whatever. So we hire production companies, and so I think there's like a little learning curve there where I think they pick up on the other side of that and probably would know better. But
I need to also find out about this whole 14-hour thing. Have you heard about this? Mm-hmm. I don't understand it.
yeah,
Do
I
you
don't
un-
either.
do you understand?
No, I don't. I don't understand it.
We need to tackle that in one of these episodes, like how there's this 14-hour deal, because if it's $100 for a 10-hour day, that means you do the math, you go 100 divided by 10 is $10 an hour. And so when we give our rates and then they say, well, we're basing it off of 14,
Which is a long day.
well, it's a long day, and also I ran into a situation years ago. We were working on a Western, and we were in Old Town Tucson, but we were also working in Gammons Gulch, which is outside of Benson. So we were actually based out of Benson. And so we had to, in one day, drive the grip truck to Old Tucson from Benson, work, and then drive back. Well, I had some taillight issues on the grip truck, and it got pulled over by a cop. And the cop found out that the grip driving had worked a 12-hour day, because it's a movie, and on top of that, had commuted an hour plus in the morning and is now commuting an hour plus afterwards. And that is like legally, that is against the law for truckers. Like it's a trucker thing. And so, because you have to have like a log book and all that kind of stuff. And so he let us off so amazingly. Like he was like, I'm not going to screw you on this, but you need to get off the freeway right now to the guy who was driving the grip truck and go and stay in that hotel
Wow.
for 8 hours. And then once you've gotten your rest, your 8 hours rest, you can drive back to Benson. And so with this 14-hour thing, and you're in a right to work state, and if there aren't Teamsters on board, then 14 hours right away is already against the law. So how does that work?
No, I think it's a really good question. I actually don't know a lot about it, so
Yeah.
I can't speak to it. But I can tell you it's not sustainable.
No.
I mean, I'll work a 14-hour day, but then, I know it's that week. I know it's da-da-da. But I'm also salary, right? It's different. You guys can't, it kills your next day. It's like overnight shoots. So it's kind of do the same thing, right? They mess up the day before and the day after. I don't know. I think, and I push, I'm kind of, like I said, I get a little scrappy, and sometimes I push on time and things, but try to communicate that up front and see if people are on board or whatever. But like, man, there's some limits. There's just some human limits, so.
Well, back to like, we're just human beings. I mean, remember like when we had the regular job, it was an 8-hour day. And then, commercial work is like
Incremental.
based on 10 hours. So that's 2 more hours. Okay. And then, some of these jobs are 12 hours. And then now we're talking about 14. That's a long day.
Well, and someone like
16,
you've got a truck in the morning and a truck in the evening. Like yours isn't a 12. It's already a 14.
And I
or a
worked the day
13.
before to load the truck.
Right.
And I worked the day after to unload the truck. And it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous.
Yeah, there's a law of diminishing returns there for sure. You can't do that every day.
No.
It's one thing if you choose to once in a while, if the money's right or if the project is right or whatever, or you need the work. I mean, those things come into play. But yeah, there's got to be a limit.
Yeah. It shouldn't be like an expectation now that, oh yeah, we're just going to work 14 plus hours.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great getting back to basics thing, to just remember that human beings get tired.
Yeah.
And we get cranky, we get hangry.
Did someone just raise their hand to hangry?
No,
Well, this is why I brought all this stuff here,
Little
so that we
snacks,
would
they're
get.
delicious. Very
Yeah.
nice. I'm about to have some cheese
So.
with my wine. No, it was really nice. This was
Yeah,
great.
it was great. It was
Really
great.
fun.
I'm so glad that you decided to come here. There was a
Very
second
cool.
there where you were wondering if it was allowed, if it was
Well,
okay.
we don't have to shake hands because
Oh, yeah,
we
yeah.
can high
I'm
five.
really glad that you came here today. And
Jarrod has the props, perfect prop
They're
solution.
on baby C stand arms, because it's a grip house. And we will conclude this episode 2. Thanks everybody for listening and watching.
Thanks for having me. Thanks
Yeah.
for being here.
Thank
all
you.
Of you guys.
And
It's a lot of fun.
we'll see you guys at an episode 3, hopefully, if we survive. We'll see what happens.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun,
All right.
dun.
Cheers.
Cheers.